But let's move forward to this program. It is important. You're going to hear some policies, protocols, procedures to eradicate systematic issues affecting trafficking and exploitation of people in our community and around the world. So with that, I want to let's launch this program. Let's take action as we lead this program, and certainly become awareness as we walk throughout the communities in which we live. Thank you. Madam Governor.
Morning, Madam Governor.
You may provide greetings, Madam Governor. Unmute.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
President Andrews, it's hard to follow you. You have just made the most phenomenal welcome. And I just want to say thank you. First of all, to President Andrews, Bishop Hubbard, Dr. Merrick, members of the Metro Atlanta Club. TMAC, as you like to be called. I'm Barbara Johnson, Governor. You just got me all off, Sister Andrews. You got me all, took most of what I was going to say, and then I couldn't unmute myself. But let me start over again. To President Andrews, Bishop Hubbard, Dr. Merrick, members of the Metro Atlanta Club, TMAC. If national officers are in attendance, I greet you as well. I bring you greetings from the Supreme Southeast District of the National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Clubs Incorporated. You know what? I noted that you have a new youth organization, and how important is it that they hear what your presentation is about today? Because we don't want them to believe that they have to be involved in any type of situation that is not wholesome for them. I want to say that I look forward to the presentation and thank you for your gracious invitation to attend. It takes all of us understanding the impact of human trafficking. Thanks again for the invitation. And Janice, next time, don't steal my thunder. Thank you all.
Thank you, Madam Governor.
So let me ask you a question. I'm Bishop Donna Hubbard, and I want to know, what do you know about human trafficking? What do you think you know about human trafficking? While you look at some of the questions that are before you, I want you to ask yourself, do you even know the answer to those? I don't want anyone to put anything in the chat box, except if you have no knowledge, if you have a little knowledge, if you're an educator or a healthcare professional or hospitality, another individual, aviation or law enforcement, put that in the chat box right now, because we'd like to know where your level is. But before the end of this presentation, we want you to feel confident in answering these questions. And we want you to feel confident in being able to know how to recognize and report human trafficking. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining this morning, and look forward to having people answer these questions now. Remember the answers, because we have prizes. So good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Katrina Taylor. I am a member of the Metro Atlanta Club. Thank you all for being here with us. Thank you for having patience on these technology. You know, we're in this new virtual world, but we're gonna make it through, amen? So I'm going to begin, before we get to our speakers, I'm gonna begin by talking about the 8 key elements of human trafficking. So key element 1, human trafficking by definition consists of 3 elements: force, fraud, coercion. Force, often young people are too trusting in situations they are not familiar with. When they get caught up in a frenzy of that moment, swayed by a smooth talking manipulator, they let their guard down. So give your daughters their own cup. Tell them no one puts anything in it but them. Fraud. Anyone would answer the ads. So when it comes down, you see these ads displayed. Those are people that will answer the ads that says all expense paid, no experience necessary, or travel the world, get paid. Truth is, they do not get paid what they are promised, and often end up owing the trafficker more than what they are making. Coercion. When a trafficker finds a weakness, they will prey on that weakness and leverage a person's life, health, and safety of their families and children to gain control of that person. So usually single mothers are the ones that are targeted. So they target them because they have so much to lose and will do anything that will protect what matters to them. If you all look at the pictures to the side of you, these are actual young ladies that were rescued from Kuwait, and they were taken back to Sierra Leone. They were the ones that answered the ads, that answered those ads that were fraud and bought into the lie. I believe 27 girls had escaped from Kuwait. So just get a good picture, get a good look The ladies at the bottom, those are the big gift bags that were given to them. Key element 2, human trafficking always involves some other form of criminal enterprise. So terrorism, money laundering, migrant smuggling, drug trafficking, and arms trafficking. So for decades, exploiters were identified by the product they sold. So drug traffickers were easily caught. They became so comfortable, they forgot to be cautious. Terrorists were untrusting and careless, so they isolated themselves. Gangs made themselves too visible, and money laundering was practiced by the rich and the foolish. The common factor in these are that you can only sell a drug, a gun, or a fake designer label on the streets once, but you can sell a human being over and over and over again. So human trafficking became the fastest and the easiest way to bankroll other criminal enterprises. Key element 3, smuggling versus trafficking. Smuggling, destination-based, too often doesn't end then. Trafficking, exploitation-based, sometimes unaware. When people pay to be smuggled or pay to have a family member smuggled, the contract or agreement is supposed to end when they reach their destination, but too often they arrive with no resources, no family, and usually they do not speak that language. They will only lose their money, and also will end up losing their identity. Key element 4. The primary reason, motivation, and purpose is to exploit another person for financial gain, political leverage, social power, and material benefit. So traffickers are no respecter of a person. They will sell their mother, their father, their child, their spouse for the right price. They do not see the victim as a person. They see the price they can sell them for, or a period of the use they can expect to gain from. In cultures where debt servitude has been practiced, it is not considered trafficking, but slavery is slavery. When they are no longer usable or become liability, they end up killing them, or they will let them go to prison or helping them kill themselves. Rarely victims will return back to their families. Key element 5. Traffickers are not defined by race, gender, and nationality. The United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime indicate that women often play a significant role as a perpetrator. And this usually comes from Europe, where women are convicted for trafficking more than any crimes. The reason is that they were once trafficked and exploited themselves. Therefore, they are easily persuaded to exploit others. This is a widespread practice now to use trafficked or formerly trafficked girls and women to recruit vulnerable victims in jails or prisons. Key element 6. No one consents to being exploited when one of the means, force, fraud, or coercion, is present. Most trafficking offenders are men, more often because they are more likely to exhibit brutal physical tactics against vulnerable victims, male or female. Threats of violence are a constant voice of a control victim. Fear of being returned to war-torn homes or losing immigration status, even separated from family and loved ones, are the means of control. Key element 7. The demand for trafficked persons is what fuels the exploitation of vulnerable populations. Anti-trafficking advocates, they argue that human trafficking exists because of the demand of cheap goods, labor, and sexual services. The Trafficking in Persons Protocol, Article 9, Section 5, to be exact, requires countries to commit to and address the demand of labor and services. This shall be done by strengthening the educational, social, or cultural experience measures that discourage demand that fosters exploitation. Those measures include concentration on the root causes by vulnerability. So that's poverty, gender discrimination, and cultural bias, excuse me. And last but not least, key element 8. Human trafficking is not a social, cultural, racial, or political issue. Human trafficking is the #1 human rights issue of our generation. I will say that again. Human trafficking is the #1 human rights issue of our generation. Dr. Martin Luther King states, if the church does not recapture its prophetic zeal, it will become an irrelevant social club without moral and spiritual authority. Pope Franciscus, in addressing the United Nations gathering to address human trafficking, stated, I encourage you to strengthen the bonds of cooperation and communication, which are essential to ending the suffering of many men, women, and children who today are enslaved and sold as if they were a mere commodity. Thank you all. I will now turn this over to my sister, Vivian Robinson.
We could ask everyone now to just kind of take a break and take a breath. I know this is a lot of information to take in, and we want you to kind of breathe. We want you to be able to take the information in, to remember what you heard. And if you'll turn your cameras on so that we can see people, we can get a look at everybody who's joining us today. You don't have to leave them on, but if you will turn your cameras on so that we can get a screenshot of everybody who's here, wave at each other, greet one another. Those of us who haven't seen each other before, make sure that you get on, people, and we can get a screenshot of you. Thank you so much for joining us. And like I said, take a deep breath, take a break, because there's still more to come.
What a beautiful crowd. Don, Tamara, I see you.
Ooh, on days, and I rise like the day. I rise unafraid. I rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. And I rise up, I like the waves. I rise up, in spite of the ache. I rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again.
Good morning. I am Vivian Robinson, and I am also a member of the Metro Atlanta Club. I'd like to introduce our moderator for this event. Our moderator is President and CEO of Solutions Always Simple Consulting, LLC. She's an educator with over 20 years teaching experience in the university system. She holds a Master of Business Management and a PhD in Leadership and Organizational Change. She's the second Vice President of the Metro Atlanta Club and the youth leader of First Love Yourself. Our moderator for this event, Dr. Stephanie Merritt.
Good morning, y'all, and thank you so much, Vivian. I appreciate that awesome announcement of moderating. I first want to thank everyone. This is a cold morning, but we are grateful that we're all able to be here, right? It's cold, but God has seen it to us to be here another day. I'm pleased to see that it's so many virtual. We have over 50 people in attendance. And I want to take a moment and let's celebrate ourselves with that. That is an awesome, awesome, just for a Saturday morning, we could all be somewhere doing other things. And I have a beautiful, nice present for someone who actually was our first visitor to actually come on to our virtual this morning. Margaret Reynolds, do you mind coming on? You were our first visitor and give us our name and where you virtually visiting us from, and the person who actually invited you, if someone did from the Teammate Sisterhood. You can put it in the chat or you can come off mute. Nikki will unmute you and you can give us your name and give us a little bit about you. Margaret Reynolds.
She's actually here. I think she tried to unmute and actually turned off her video. So we'll see if she comes back on here in a second. But if not, I'll encourage her to put it in.
So we'll definitely get your email address. You can put it in the chat so that we can follow with you and get your information and send out a prize. I would like to acknowledge a second person that actually came on. Let's see here. To me, let's see who's our second person that braved that. Okay.
Margaret Reynolds, I'm back.
Okay, all right, Ms. Reynolds.
I got lost.
You want to tell us where you virtually, where you're virtual?
Yes, ma'am. I am from the Sunshine State, Miami, Florida. And of course, I am with the chapter out of Miami, Florida, of Professional Women of Broward. Bishop Donna Hubbard is my spiritual daughter in the Lord. And of course, she invited me. So, you know, I'm covered double indemnity. So, and I also am a bishop. So good morning, everybody.
Well, thank you. Just put your email in the chat for us and we will definitely send you out a nice gift. And we had a second person that came right close in with you, Cammie Bree, a bride.
Oh, wow. Hi.
And where are you joining us from?
I am joining you guys from Griffin, Georgia. I am the president of the Griffin Spalding Club, located in Griffin, Georgia.
All right. Well, we would nice to see you. And you definitely go ahead and put your email address in the chat box, and we will send you out something nice. And I'm so excited to see that our sisterhood is joining us from all over to get up. We're on Eastern time, Central time zone. There are a lot of opportunities for everyone to be able to be involved and actually find out what resources we have to combat this human trafficking situation. We have three fabulous, moving forward, we have three fabulous, beautiful women who will share and encourage us through this panel of personal stories. I cannot imagine what they went through or how they're going. Also, just being able to have to relive this situation. But we are definitely honored to have them being open and transparent with us. And I'm great to know that they will be able to provide some empowering and encouraging insight on how we can be aware and help each other. And I would like to go ahead before we start, panelists. Vivian, you can give an introduction. For our first speaker.
Thank you, Dr. Mary. Our first speaker, Catherine Griffin Townsend, is a survivor, a thriver, and a driver. Catherine Griffin Townsend is the daughter of the famous late Ed Townsend, composer of Let's Get It On, and that song was performed and sung by the late Marvin Gaye. She was lured into the life at 19 years of age and was trafficked throughout the country. she was moved via airplane and through the airports. And during this time that she was being moved around, she was heavily drugged. As a result, she became addicted to both crack and cocaine. Following that, she was arrested in Houston, Texas as a prostitute. She was released from jail in 2003 and enrolled in a new program that was sponsored by the Harris County Start Drug Court. She excelled and bloomed in this program. As a result of completing this program successfully, she started her own program, Been There, Done That. It provides classes for girls getting out of the life. They meet every week and she works with them. Since 2016, Catherine Griffin Townsend, along with Bishop Donna Hubbard, have facilitated more than 24 human trafficking public awareness training sessions together, not only here in the US, but abroad. Currently, Catherine and Donna are working on a Survivor Leader Strategy Summit to be held in the spring of 2022. I present to you Catherine Griffin Townsend.
Ms. Townsend, before we actually hear from you, would like to tell us something or share something about you that we don't know through your bio. What is it that you would like to share with us that we don't know and we will have not heard through your bio this morning?
She's muted.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning, beautiful, beautiful ladies from all over. It's an honor to be asked to be a panelist today. What you all are doing is phenomenal. I want to thank you. I want to thank my sister, Bishop Hubbard, and the entire organization, the NANBP, and everyone else who's on here. I'm presently the Human Trafficking Victim Services Director for Harris County Constable Precinct 1, the Harris County Sheriff Department. And I'm the founder of another program, the only one in the world that is for the sex industry rehabilitation, called Our Roadway to Freedom in the Texas Department of Corrections. I am a mother. I have 3 daughters. I have 8 grandchildren. I got a new grandbaby. I call her Ticket because it's a one-way ticket. She won't be getting into this if I got anything to do with it. But it is nothing but the favor of God that has allowed me to go through the paths and the journeys that I've been through and still here alive and healthy today to be able to do the work that God has ordained me and the seeds that are planted through his Holy Spirit to share in individuals' lives who have been traumatized by the darkness of sexual human trafficking and occasionally labor trafficking. But my area is sex trafficking, prostitution reform.
Well, we'll look forward to hearing you in the next couple of minutes. We'll go ahead and let's get our introduction for our second panelist. You're on mute, Vivian. Our second panelist is going to be Dorsey LaWan Cook. So nice to have you with us as well. So Dorsey
excuse me. Dorsey LaQuan Jones Cook. Miss Cook was her dad's, she's a girl dad. And every place or most places that her dad went, she went also. Her dad's name was Henry Jones. He was a Vietnam vet, and he was a very strong swimmer. One day while crabbing in Virginia Beach, a wave crept up and surprised him, and as a result of that, he drowned. Following that, Dorsey became the care of her mother. Her mother decided to uproot the family from Norfolk and to move to South Georgia. At this time, Dorsey was 6 years old. One thing that Dorsey remembers about this time in her life is one constant, and that one constant is that there was always hunger, and she was always hungry during this time. On Dorsey's 11th birthday, she became a victim. She encountered a neighbor across the street from her who fondled her. And after he fondled her, he gave her a crumbled $20 bill. As she grew older and matured and graduated high school, she believed against all odds that her life was destined for more. As a result, Dorsey packed up her present life and left her past life and moved to Atlanta, Georgia to attend college at Morris Brown College. While she was attending Morris Brown College, she met the love of her life, Carlos Cook. They later married, and Dorsey seemed to be happy. But at night, while she slept, she tossed and she turned every night. Finally, her husband, Carlos, said to her, quote, "Write a book, tell your story, get it all out," unquote. That night and many more nights, Dorsey spent working on her book, Stretched Beyond Measure, When the Angels Were Crying. I present Dorsey Laquan Jones Cook.
So, Ms. Cook, so nice to have you with us as well. So tell us something about you that we will not know through your bio. Give us some background about you.
Unmute.
Unmute.
We are. It's coming.
Good morning.
You actually clicked it again. So go ahead and unmute again.
I say good morning. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be a part of the panel. I want to say that it's truly an honor. And the only thing that I would like to say at this time is to just know that I'm so forever grateful to God for this opportunity. And also, as you was reading my bio, it gave me chills because when you talked about my husband, and then it made me think about my 4 beautiful children. And earlier, while we were waiting to get on the line, I made a mistake and had my first grandbaby in the video. So I want to apologize for that. I just haven't seen her in a minute, and it just brought joy to me. But I just want to share and know that it takes us, and it takes us to really come up with a solution for this epidemic. So thank you.
So that was so nice to have both of you on the panel. And what we'll do, we'll start off with Catherine. Give us your story. Tell us your story in your own words, what you would like for us to know and make us aware of what's going on in the human trafficking world.
Well, first of all, growing up in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, I never imagined that I would end up in a dark place, growing up in the church and being the choir director and being in all of the school activities and student council and stuff, and even getting an academic scholarship to Texas Southern University at the age of 16. I really thought that my mother had put me on the right path to be a successful adult. And unfortunately, I was distracted along the way, not understanding that the secrets throughout my childhood that my mother knew absolutely nothing about. The babysitter's brothers trying to place their male parts inside me as a 6, 7, 8-year-old, and was threatened beyond understanding what was going on, that something really bad would happen to me if I ever told what they were doing. So I buried it. And I have learned that burying those secrets made me very sick. And my sickness was infectious enough to make other people sick, because we do. Sick people make other people sick. And I grew up in the era where what goes on in this house stays in this house. But I wasn't allowed to discuss what was happening to me in that house. So they didn't know about it until many, 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 many years later. I came to Houston, Texas, straight out of the country. I'd never seen tall buildings and that many lights in my life. Me being 16, I'm in the dormitory. Everybody was going to the club and everybody was turning up, and I wanted to fit in. Unbeknown to me, that it opened a door for a lot of things to come into my life. Remember, predators, traffickers, look for vulnerabilities. Me being at that point in my life green as a patch of collard greens, I went for whatever. I was trying to fit in. And unfortunately, it took me in the wrong path. I wanted to be a part of the music industry. I toured with the Cold-Blooded tour with Rick James, and everybody knows that Rick James, with that came a lot of drugs, narcotics, lots. And when the lights and the cameras were off and gone away, I had a $30,000 cocaine addiction that attached itself to my life for the next 22 years, which led me in and out of jails, prisons, institutions, rehabs, and in some of the darkest places you would never want anybody that you know or don't know to go. I know what it is to be held against my will, put in a cage, fed dog food, every bone broken, hungry, doing whatever I had to do. And it got to a point that the trafficker wasn't the enemy at that point. It was the addiction, doing whatever I had to do to keep the drugs coming in, to cover up, so I thought, the pain and the agony of all of the things I was having to do. I've been so high up that from the White House to all the way to Skid Row, and I fell so low, I had to look up just to see the bottom of my shoes. But the good news is I made it out. God's grace, prayers from people that I didn't know and family members brought me to where I am today. I only want to go that far with my story because it's not even about that. We all see that God has blessed me to make it, but I'm really wanting to give information today, because even from the times in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, trafficking looked a lot different than it does right now. The youngest child that I've ever rescued off of a strip pole was 9. And right now, in the sex industry, and I'm in Houston, Texas. So what I want you all to know is the number that has been counted of actual sex slaves in the state of Texas in 2021 was over 80,000. So if those were the ones we know about, what about the ones we don't know about? Slavery is greater than it's ever been, ever in the history of the world right now. And understanding that the flavor of sexuality right now among children, basically 11, 12 to 17. Back in my day, it was very important that our families wanted us to stay pure and become virgins until we were with our husbands. Well, that is so far gone, because now, if you're not a virgin, then you're bullied, picked on, made fun of. You're tortured over social media, which social media is one of the darkest demonic tools that was put together, hopefully for something good, but they've taken it and turned it into something really ugly and bad. And dating, the Facebooks, it's interesting. Everybody did all the fight to get Backpage out of the way. But as soon as allegedly Backpage went away, 5,000 other ones were there to replace all of this. I would be surprised, even if just everyone on this call today, something so innocent as us going on a picnic or going to the beach or going out to dinner, any of that, you have taken pictures of your children, even in their little swimsuits or what their little church clothes, whatever. And the boogeyman used to hide behind the car, jump out of a van and say, "You want some candy, little girl?" Well, every time you put a picture out there online, the boogeyman sits at home and he relieves himself, or the boogie woman, because it's not just men and women, it's both. So it's very important. I know I got knocked off. It's very important that we are aware of what the signs are. Now, I want to thank you for allowing me to come on and let you know that I've been there, done that, and I have survived the tragedy and the trauma of being a sex slave. God bless you.
Thank you, Catherine. We appreciate you so much for your transparency, for being our sister, and for giving us the insight from your perspective on this tragedy. You and I both know that there's not enough information out there for people to really grasp the perplexity and the depth of this. So I don't want to hold up time. I want to introduce Dorsey, and so Dorsey can join us and tell her story. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
I want to take you on a journey of an 11-year-old girl. Mama, there's no food in the house and I'm hungry. Mama, why you never put your arms around me to tell me that you love me? Deprivation lived in my home. The feeling of being unloved by my mother lived in my home, and child exploitation, it lived there too. See, I know that life all too well. It happened when I was 11 years old. My neighbor crumbled up $20 and placed it in my hand. The first time he fondled me, the second time he caressed my breast, and the third time he inserted his penis in the inside of me. And when he finished, he passed me to their brother, and then they passed me to their father. The man behind me was sleeping with me. The man down the street was sleeping with me. And before you knew it, half of the community in Bainbridge, Georgia was sleeping with a hungry, scared, desperate 11-year-old child. Before I turned 12 years old, I had already slept with over 200 plus men in my community. I was told that I would never be nothing in life based on who I was and where I came from, because I came from the side of the tracks where nobody came reaching and pulling. Nobody came to see about me because of who I belonged to. I had low self-esteem. I never stayed at home because we didn't have what we needed in our home. We didn't have lights. We didn't have water. We didn't have love. But as I grew older, I realized that my mom did the best she could. My mom was a hurt person growing up. She was taken advantage of, so she only could give me what she could, and she gave me the best that she could. But it caused me to not know how to love myself properly. And my mom never put me out of her home. It was so bad. I just knew it was something so much better than what I was given. I knew that it was somebody's house that had some love in it, and I knew that I needed that. So I would stay anywhere and everywhere just so that I could experience some type of love. And I always knew how to say yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, and thank you, and please, so that I could be afforded to stay another night. For this particular time, my mom had promised the people that I was living with that she would give them my social security check, and she never gave it to them. So nobody wants a young person standing in their house and you're taking care of them, but you're not receiving any type of money. So they put me out, and I went to the park and I slept on the merry-go-round. And I remember waking up off the merry-go-round, going back to school with the same clothes on I had on the day before. And I said, God, I didn't cry all I can cry. Now the angels got to cry for me. So I would go to school not being able to pay attention to my subject matter, because at that moment I was just hungry. And I knew if I was at school, I didn't have to worry about my neighbor sleeping with me, because every morning he would grab me before I even made it to school, lure me into his house and have sex with me. And my brother, my younger brother and I, we knew that his wife made tea cakes. It's like cornbread and you put it on top of the stove. So we would break in their house and steal the tea cakes. Well, this particular day, I went in by myself to take the tea cakes, and the door was locked. So I went through the window. And as I came through the window, he grabbed me. He said, I'm gonna teach you a lesson about breaking in my house. So I had to sleep with him every morning on my way to work and on my way to school while his wife was working the 7 to 3 shift. And I was only in the 4th grade during that time, but I knew I couldn't say anything because I was wrong for going into their home, stealing. So it just caused me to be a type of kid that was just always running away, always in the street, always in somebody's car. Because by this time, the community is so small, until the men knew how to lure me. They would see me walking, put me in the car, take me in the woods, have sex with me, take me to their home, have sex with me, and then bring me back. And it caused me to just not really value myself, not love myself. And I remember it was a family, her name was Miss Angelique Scott. She took me in her house and she said, as long as you have somewhere to stay, as long as I have somewhere to stay, you have somewhere to stay. So that became my new home. And it was a lot of love in that home. And even though there was a lot of love and there was a lot of nurturing, by this time I'm in high school and I'm still not understanding the value of myself. I'm still not understanding that God created me for destiny. I'm still not understanding that I have a voice and that I'm special. And my grades were just still not up to par. So when I graduated from high school, she sat me down and she said, I want you to leave Bainbridge, Georgia, and I want you to go to Atlanta. I want you to go to Job Corps. So when I got to Job Corps, I just really didn't like it. I was there for about 15 days. I didn't like the atmosphere, but I heard about Morris Brown College and the AU Center. So every day for 7 days, I walked down to Morris Brown, and I was denied by a guy named Donald Holmes. He had just graduated from Morris Brown and he was working in admissions. And it's like he took the liberty. He loved the idea that he could tell me I wasn't good enough to go to the school. But because God put a burning desire in the inside of my belly that would not allow me to quit and would not allow me to take a no, because I had heard no's all my life, but I knew that there was a yes somewhere for me. I went back to Morris Brown College, and Christopher Andrews was sitting at the desk and he said, how can I help you? I said, I would like to be a student at this great institution. And he said, how were your grades? I said, they were not good at all. He said, where are you from? I said, I'm from Bainbridge, Georgia. He called my high school, and Mary Gant, who is my financial aid, she was my guidance counselor. She answered the phone and she had a conversation with him. And he hung up and he said, Dorsey, you can be a student here. It wasn't until later on I found out that her uncle was the first doctor in Bainbridge. His name was Dr. Griffin. And there was a building named for him at Morris Brown called the Griffin Hightower Building. And what she said was, if you don't allow Dorsey to be a student, we're not going to give you any more funding. And that's how I became a student at Morris Brown. I had to take a placement test. I didn't do well on the math, so I had to take 099. And that put me in a category where there was a program called Student Support Services. I became a member of Student Support Services. I never nominated myself for any type of academic anything. I was never part of a program. I was never on part of SGA or any of that, but I nominated myself for vice president. And when the nomination was over, they said that I had more votes than the president, and I sold myself short. And I say all that to say it's not where you're going, but it's not where you've been, but where God is gonna take you. And I met my husband at Morris Brown College, a person who showed me what love looked like. But I knew that when I took him to Bainbridge, all my secrets was gonna come out. So I knew at that moment I needed to share with him who he had, who I was, because I was embarrassed and I never wanted him to be embarrassed. And what he said was, I love you no matter what. He said, you had to do what you had to do to survive and you're gonna be okay. And we've been together all my life. We have 4 beautiful children, and I have my first 2 grandchildren just recently. One is 3 months and one is 2 months. My life has not always been great, but what I can truly say is I wouldn't change my life for nothing. If I had to go back and relive my life all over again, I would do it, because nobody can do what I do. When it comes to touching the hearts of the children of Fulton County, I've been there for 20 years, and every child that comes through my caseload who look like me, who act like me, they remind me that I have to fight harder. They remind me that I have to be their voice, because they don't have a voice. But it's not even about being their voice. It's teaching them to use their voice so that the whispers can no longer cry for them, so that when someone touched them inappropriately, their voice can speak up and they can say, you touch me, don't touch me, or go to the right resource so somebody can help them. I didn't have resources when I was growing up. These things were just happening to me. My stepfather slept with me, not one stepfather, not 2, but I had 3 stepfathers to sleep with me at a very young age. And when you have all that stuff, you don't know how to live. You don't know how to have a healthy relationship. But I just thank God that he really covered me. He really covered me and taught me how to love. Not only how to love myself, but how to love my children, how to be a great mother. I remember writing my first paper at Morris Brown College. The most influential person in my life was my mother, because she was so negative. And she taught me how to be a great mother. She taught me how to be a great wife. And now I can truly say I walk in forgiveness. I love my mom with my entire heart. But again, I know that she did the best she could. And so many times we judge parents, we judge children. But I want you to take a moment and think about the message that we're here today. It take all of us. What's your role? What are you gonna do when you see that little boy, that little girl that's walking down the street that's looking a certain way, and in your mind you have already planted a seed that they are thought, that they are promiscuous, that they'll never be nothing, because that's the way society look at our children. But we need to be saying, it's something wrong with that picture. Why is that child on the corner? Why is that boy's pants hanging down? Why is that child sleeping in the classroom? Why is that child so in a place where they're shy and they're not talking and they can't look you in the eye? There are signs. Learn your signs, know your signs. And at the end of the day, the question should be, if you see something, say something. This is not the time to have a closed mouth. And I would like to say right now, I'm a member of a lot of organizations. I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta. I sit at the task force for sex trafficking with Fulton County Task Force under the leadership of Commissioner Rob Pitts. I am the ambassador for the Hartsfield Airport under sex trafficking. I am the Rotary spokesperson for the International Rotary. God has did a lot for me, and I am just honored and privileged to be here today. And I said, we can't stop. We must continue. We must fight. We must take care of our children. We must teach them how to love themselves, how to appreciate themselves. And at the end of the day, it's not a child on this earth that can't thrive. I'm a living witness that we can, with the right resources and the right love. So thank you. Have a wonderful day. And I hope that what I said, it moved you. It moved you to a point where even when you get off this call, you're going to continue to find ways to help our children in this epidemic of sex trafficking. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorsey.
Thank you. You ladies were both powerful, both inspiring. We could have asked for a better audience and panel this morning. And what I got out of both of you is that we have to speak and get someone that we can reach out to. Because right now, this fitting in, our young people are trying to fit in. Social media, the platforms have just taken over our children's lives, and wanting to work and connect with other people, trying to be like someone that they only see a glimpse of. They don't know what it is to get there. So being able to find out from you, either one of you can answer this question. I know both of you started at young ages in different forms of how you were trafficked. You have at 9-year-old, you have someone as young as 4 and 5. What would you tell us to help us be able to come back and have the resources to acknowledge how to get help for these youth? And it's not just youth that are doing it, it's adults, but we got to start at a place where we catch them young.
First of all, it's very important that you don't clam up and not allow an individual, boy or girl, man or woman, to talk to you and you cringe on what they're saying. So many times, a lot of the clients, our survivors, our victims that I work with were not allowed to discuss what was happening, because a lot of times it was the boyfriend, the husband, the daddy, the stepdaddy, so forth and so on, the aunt, the sister, the babysitters, and the mother would tell them that they were lying. When you tell a victim that they're lying, it's going to shut them down. And then there's where re-traumatization comes in. Also, be aware of those, because a lot of people know about all of the human trafficking awareness. And some individuals will use being a victim, which they may not be, just to get attention, because a lot of people didn't get attention. A lot of people got attention that was unhealthy attention. And a lot of people are looking to still fit in. It takes many years to untraumatize certain victims. You don't just get it all the time on the first round. It took me 22 rehabs and so many stints in and out of jails and prisons. And by the grace of God, I finally got it. The light bulb went off. Some people think that they can beat the Bible into certain victims and that's going to change them. But everybody, you have to meet everybody where they are. No two people are identical. Even identical twins don't pass gas or blink their eyes or use the bathroom at the same time. So God made us all individual and unique. There are those who have greater psychological issues than others. Some are able to bounce back where others are not. I am a woman in lifetime recovery. I practice 100% abstinence from any alcohol and drugs and narcotics, period. But then some people can take a sip of wine and not go back to narcotics. I'm a real addict. I can't do that. And by the grace of God, we're going to pray that the Lord will help me eventually stop smoking these cigars. Y'all pray for a sister.
That's
Pray
my
for-
friend. That is my sister. And if that's the worst thing we have to worry about, then that I'm grateful to have you here, Catherine. Thank you so much.
Yes, and one of the things like you said, we definitely have to drink from our own cup, right? Pick our own cup. And we need to start early on, even in our sippy cups, right? We have our young babies want to pick up different things, and we have to teach them early on. This is your cup. No one else's cup. Let's use our own cup. We need to start in that area.
That's right.
And so I know we've had two powerful, amazing speaking. It's been emotional. It's been emotional for me as well. It's a lot to take in. And if you just want to continue to open up in the chat and write things of expression. And I do have time before we transition to another portion of this program. If someone have a burning question for any one of them, just one question. If you have a burning question, you can put your hand up and use the reaction. And we can unmute you, or you can put it in the chat if you didn't want to be. Do we have anyone that would have a question that would like to share?
Can I just say one quick thing, please? You know, a lot of people want to know, well, where are these people? Who do they look like? They look like us. They look like us. And I just wanted to let you know, if I don't know how many people have seen the Good Girls Club or the Bad Girls Club, and it's like the affluent students, you know, they used to bully the little shy or fat girl or the thick glasses or boys. Now, a lot of them befriend the individuals that they would bully and draw them into the sex industry and introduce them to pimps. And they think that that's funny. That's their new way of bullying them or enticing them to let them know that they can make a lot of money. And then they get caught up in the dark web of sex trafficking. I just kind of wanted to throw that in, and don't shy away that this is not occurring in your churches, in your jails, in your rehab programs, in your schools, you know, yeah, parks, grocery stores, concerts, but it's closer to your front door than you think.
Yes, so we didn't get any questions, so there is more to hear, but right before I turn it over, I want to say, who know what color is internationally recognized as the University for Human Trafficking? Who knows that? What's the
Before someone answers that, Dr. Stephanie, we did have two hands raised in the gallery, Gwendolyn and Sharon. So I'm not sure how much time we have for Q&A.
Okay.
But if you,
I see Sharon's hand, Sharon Hogg. If you want to give us your brief question for one of the panelists, go ahead.
Yeah, I just sent you a signal to unmute. You may have to click the button, Miss Sharon. Thank you.
Okay. My question is to Ms. Griffin. She referred to the trafficking as a flavor, and I thought that was kind of unique because I see it being different types of sex trafficking, you know, and I thought that was significant. Why did you call it a flavor? That's what I'm wanting to know. Because it is when I think of it, there are different types of trafficking, and so it made me think, just like you said, flavors. You know, you got different kinds of flavors. So explain to me, please, what your reasoning for using flavor.
Well, when it comes down to flavors, you've got your Romeo pimping, you've got the force, you've got the there's emotional abuse, financial abuse, even your living condition abuse. If you don't have sex with me, you can't live here. So domestic violence is really a first cousin. And then the very individual that you would think would never have that dark side to traumatize and inflict this kind of darkness into individuals' lives, for some people would be so surprising. It's a big gumbo pot of scenarios. And I have 19 years now, I have not found any identical cases. They all have their unique fingerprint and footprint of how an individual was abused and trafficked and traumatized. So if you just looking for homeboy with the hat and the cane and the goldfish in his shoes, that's some BS. Okay, really, that really is. It could be anything, anybody, anywhere, anytime. And a lot of people put a lot of faith in people that they look to as leaders. And that's why it's so important that us, as I'm a peer specialist and advocate, I'm the ambassador for victims of violent crimes here. I have to make sure I'm never being a hypocrite, because if I'm working with somebody and I tell you to do as I say and not as I do, I'm in the wrong line of work. And that's the day that the Lord needs to wipe me off the face of the earth. So it is a mixture. Be open to see what you don't want to see, what you think you're seeing. If your gut tells you something isn't right, I promise you that's the Holy Spirit leading you. Something isn't right, but I don't want you to become super paranoid either and look into something that you think is there that might not be that. So that's what I meant. It's a plethora of
Yeah.
flavor.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for that question, Sharon. You can put your email address in the chat box for us, and we do have a gift for you. Thank you for brave enough to come off mute and ask your question. I got time for one more. I'm going to ask my sister Gwendolyn Burton to come off mute and ask her question, and then we will go back and have Miss Dorsey follow up behind your question. Okay.
Good morning, my sisters. Thank you to the panelists so very, very much for this insightful information. And both of you have spoken about young children or being trafficked as a young person. What about an adult woman who's out looking for a significant other and dates and gets caught into trafficking? What can you say to that audience of people?
Let me say that I work more with adults because I run the prison programs, but can I ask permission first? I teach a whole series on knowing the signs of a relationship versus a relationship. And a lot of people think that they're in relationships when they're actually relationships. And being able to accept that fact. And if you check your track record, it's easy for everybody personally check their track record. How has your experience been with you picking your mate? First of all, that's a red flag, because we shouldn't have to pick our own mate, because the Bible tells us finding a wife is a good thing. So Dorsey, you take it from there. Can she hear?
Does she have about a minute before we start the next section? Can you follow up with that?
Oh yeah, Dorsey. Go ahead, Dorsey.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I haven't really had an opportunity to work with a whole lot of older people. I normally, I work with children. I specialize in children. And what I try to do is when they come into the court, they won't even disclose to the people that they're working with. What happens is they'll bring them to me, and in my 30 minutes or 45 minutes of talking with them, God has given me the ability to just love on them and share my story. And then when I share my story, they disclose what happened. And at that moment, I don't pass judgment. I don't say, oh, it didn't happen to you. You were just hot and you was promiscuous. I don't do that. I listen. And when I gather all my information at that moment, I get with my team to figure out what we need to put in place for that child, because she might need to have a psychological. She might need to be a part of Georgia Cares, where assessment has to be done. She might not even need to be in her home at that moment, because it could have been her boyfriend, her mother's boyfriend, or her stepdad, or her uncle or cousin who did it. So defects has to get involved. There's a whole lot of perimeters that need to take place. But what I do know is children don't wake up and say, you know what, I want to sell my body today. They're put in situations where things happen. And unfortunately, like me, I didn't have a pimp that came to get me every day. Deprivation was my pimp, and he was there 365 days a year because there was a need in my house that wasn't being met. And the men in the community knew that, and they took advantage of my innocence. So what I would like to see is, when we see children in situations, we need to keep having these type of conversations so that we can educate the community, that we can educate our children. And we need to have conversations with our kids when we're sitting at the table. A lot of times we're so intrigued with giving them the iPhone 13 Pro and a Mac laptop and a video game, and take them to get the Yeezys and all this other stuff, when all they really want is your attention, and to sit at the table and have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a real life conversation. Because what I do know, the pimp will say, I'm gonna do something that you don't do, and that's talk to your child, because you're missing out on that. Have conversations, talk about real life stuff. What's happening in school today? What's going on in the community? Is there anything in the house that you don't feel comfortable with, or that upset you? Let's have a conversation about that. But we don't have those conversations. We want to give our kids material things and think that that's okay. And then when we can't provide that, they go in the street and they look for other people to give it to them. Because if a child go to school and her head is down and she don't have the things that she need, and little Sally Sue go over there and say, you know what? My friend said, if you come over here, he can teach you how to be a model. You want to be a model, you want to rap, and before you know it, he didn't lure her into a situation where he giving her money, and she think she going to get her nails done because he really caring, but he didn't got her nails done. So now he didn't met with her on a Friday night and took her to the hotel, and now she got to have sex because she got her nails done. We got to do better.
Thank you, Dorsey. We appreciate that.
And that brings us into our last section. Bishop Herbert got a few minutes and moments to share with us. We wanted to try to stay on time because I respect everyone actually allowing us to be here on this platform. So we want to try to go ahead and move forward in this here, our last speaker.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure to have two of my closest friends and two sisters that I admire so much in this work to join us this morning. But what I'm going to do, we're going to move quickly through here because I do want to get this information out. Someone asked just now about adults that are trafficked. And for me, it was not force, it was not fraud, it was coercion. I was an adult and I had young children, and basically I had been drugged, I had been gang raped, and the shame and the guilt sent me running. I didn't know how to tell anybody what had happened to me because back then there was no one talking about human trafficking. You were either a prostitute or a whore, and there was nothing in the middle. And as a young mother trying to fit in, I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know who to tell. And so when I was told, either you do what we tell you to, or we'll take one of your children, I did what I had to survive. And like Catherine said, they used drugs in order to control me. They used drugs in order to make sure that I was obedient. I made them a lot of money, and I made them a lot of money. And when the pimp realized that I was making him a lot of money, he sold me to a gang. The gang came in, they gang raped me and told me that either I did what I was told to do when I was told to do it, or they would take one of my daughters, who were young girls by then, 10 and 12. And again, I did what I had to do to survive. I let my children think I was just a drug addicted mother, but I knew that the less they knew, the better off they were, the safer they were. My escape was to go to prison. I knew that if I went to prison, they could not get to me. And yet now the number one way of recruiting girls is in jails. And Catherine will tell you now they send women into the jails. And I know Dorsey can attest to this. And those women get arrested and they're in jail. And they'll ask some young woman, do you have some place to stay when you get out? And if she doesn't, the thing is, you can come and stay with me and my boyfriend. We'll help you get back on your feet. And that's one of their new recruiting techniques. I've been blessed when I came home from prison after I was given a 24-year sentence. And the problem that we face today is the criminalization of victims. Too many victims are criminalized along with the traffickers, and we don't have enough legislators doing something about that. So that's a big issue now and a big platform that we have taken on to decriminalize the victims. But when I came home from prison, I founded Women at the Well Transition Center. And today we have more than 10,000 women who have been trained and have received services through Women at the Well Transition Center programs. I am an international consultant for the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. I've helped to rescue about 2,000 girls and women around the world, including the girls and women that you saw on the picture in Kuwait. You can go to the first slide if you would for me. Tamika, thank you. So just so that you know, victims, human trafficking is not just sexual exploitation. There are begging rings, illegal adoptions, all the things you see on here. But something I want to point out to you, the little boy that you see with the flowers. I took that picture when I was in Jakarta. And this little boy came up to us and tried to sell the flowers to us, and they were half dead. And if you look up in the corner of that little picture, you'll see some people standing up there. And those were other children that these two women had. And they had to sell flowers in order to be able to eat. Now, if anybody looked at that picture, you'd say this little boy was 8 years old. But this little boy is 15 years old and had basically been starved to death. We think that the child brides and the child soldiers happen somewhere else. But anytime these drug lords put a gun in the hand of our teenage boys and our young boys in our neighborhoods, in our inner city neighborhoods, and they put a gun in their hand and they give them drugs and they have to bring the money back for those drugs, we now have child soldiers in the United States and child brides. People think that happens somewhere else, but the truth is that when they found out that they would go to jail for having sex with young girls, now it is legal in the United States for you to sign a paper and your 10-year-old, 12-year-old daughter can marry a 60-year-old man. He can go to jail for having sex with a child, but he won't go to prison for having sex with his wife. And finally, I want to finish with the organ trafficking. We don't think about it. In fact, we don't want to think about it. But the truth is that when you see some of the bodies that have turned up in places all over the country, the young man in Valdosta, Georgia, who was wrapped in a rug and found in his gymnasium, his organs were missing. And organ trafficking is one of the fastest growing forms of trafficking in the world. And when you see a movie like Get Out, that's not a joke. It's not false. It's real. And so we have to be very careful to see what we're looking at. Next slide, please. And so moving forward, we understand who can be exploited. But do you know how much money it makes? I want you to think about $150 billion. Click, please. That is more than Google, Nike, and Starbucks combined. If I told you that I have a business venture that I want you to join in, and it makes $150 billion, everybody would jump on board. But the reality is, as business and professional women, we need to see who we are in the bed with. We're doing business with companies around the world as entrepreneurs. You need to know what their practice is. You need to know if they're using sweatshops. If you buy a knockoff bag in the streets of New York, you have just participated in human trafficking because more than likely that knockoff bag is made in a sweatshop somewhere. Next slide, please. So I want to finish with my presentation by talking about the role of demand, because see, there have always been vulnerable populations and there have always been people who have perverted nature, but the agent of exploitation is what made human trafficking popular. And so demand, the acronym demand is very simple, but I use it to describe human trafficking. So now has become a low risk, high return, very little consequences. When you think about the number of traffickers who are being charged as compared to the number of women and victims who are arrested. Even in Atlanta, we were arresting 1,400 people, but only 400 of them were the Johns, and 1,000 of them were the victims. The evidence shows that that people value money more than they value human suffering. And we need to understand that it's not just laying down, because for a long time, people counted human trafficking. They counted women who sold themselves on the street. It was their fault, it was their choice. But the truth is, when you look at what human trafficking is, it's the blood, sweat, and tears of people who basically have lost who they are. They have no value to themselves. No one has affirmed them. And that's something we have to stop doing, is looking at people in terms of where they are and not who they are. So and when you think about COVID and how it has impacted your life, I want you to think about how it's impacted the issue of human trafficking. There are so many people that have been displaced, and people who have become desperate because of COVID and the impact on their personal lives, that young people have turned to human trafficking. Women who were living in extended stay hotels, single mothers, have turned to being trafficked. Those who are in extreme poverty, who are dealing with mental illness. Catherine will tell you that even in Texas, we have so many people who have mental illness wandering the street, and they are victims of trafficking. They lock them in rooms, they victimize them, then they'll leave them there to die, or they'll release them back into the street. Domestic violence has an overlap into human trafficking, because so much of it is violence, and familiar trafficking, meaning a family member or spouse, has become the trafficker. And natural disasters, in the case of Katrina, natural disasters often play a role in human trafficking. And when the earthquake happened in Haiti, human trafficking rose 400%. When Hurricane Katrina came into New Orleans, human trafficking rose 150%. And so I talked about that agent of exploitation, because where there is going to be a demand, someone's going to make that supply, even if it is for a perverted nature. And so when the demand became great, especially with the internet, then all of a sudden there were people who would monopolize on that. No one is exempt from it. It doesn't matter how wealthy you are. You can look at cases like Jeffrey Epstein, and you can look at people on the street. We have a lot of teenagers who are living underground, and one boy will make $150,000 on 3 girls in a year. We had a case in San Francisco, Catherine was there with me, where one boy was living in his car, making $7,000 a week selling teenage girls. And so the demand drives the industry. And so you can go to the next slide. The demand drives the industry, and that role of demand is something each one of us can look at, and how we can impact it, how we can identify it in our lives and in our communities. You can go to the next slide for me, please. And so the important thing now is that we see what we're looking at. Not all tattoos are bad. We know that. There's some beautiful tattoos. However, some of the traffickers use tattoos to identify their property. In the case of the barcode, there are often messages in the barcode that show how much that person cost, or who owns them. And finally, the picture you see in the bottom left-hand corner, that was an actual picture that was taken of a little girl who ran away from her family because she met this man online. They found them at an airport and were able to rescue the girl. But that's an actual picture, just as the picture of the young girl is an actual picture. She's an actual friend of mine who was trafficked at the age of 14. And that's how old she was in that picture. Next slide, please. So it's important to see what we are looking at, because that's what traffickers count on. They count on us not having the time in our own personal lives to see what we are looking at, and to take the time to recognize it and to report it. So it takes all of us. That picture on the right-hand side is an actual picture of a woman running that was taken in Haiti during the earthquake. It takes all of us to identify it, to recognize it, and to report it. Next slide, please. And I want to close with this. These are the numbers I want you to remember. Everybody's got a phone. So I'm going to ask you to take out your phone, because if I said the number to you, you might not be able to write it down. Take out your phone, take a picture of this screen. These are the phone numbers that will make a difference to you. The Department of Homeland Security Human Trafficking Hotline, the National Human Trafficking Hotline, the Department of Homeland Security Blue Lightning number, and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Those are numbers that are really important. If you want to get more information online and more training, you can go to the Blue Heart campaign that is run by the UNODC. It's an online training, takes about 30 minutes. But remember this, if you don't have these numbers accessible to you, your first line of defense is to call 911. I can tell you how many times, I can't tell you how many times people looked at me, but they didn't see me. They didn't see the hunger. They didn't see the desperation. They didn't see the fear. All they saw was my personal and my circumstances. So if you truly care about making a difference, don't confront anybody, don't display any alarm, don't try to rescue anybody, don't endanger yourself. Use your time, your resources, and yes, your money to donate to programs in your community that are making a difference in the lives of human trafficking victims and survivors. We want victims to become survivors. So now that you see, you've had the information that we've given you today, do you feel more comfortable answering these questions? Do you feel like some of these questions you now know the answers to? Did you find out some things you did not know before? The difference between smuggling and trafficking. Smuggling is destination-based, trafficking is exploitation-based. So if you look at how many victims there are globally, the International Labor Organization said that there's 42 million people engaged and entangled in human trafficking to date. 24% of them are labor trafficking, not sexual exploitation. So I hope that you have learned something. I hope that you feel more comfortable answering these questions. It's been a difficult time trying to tell these stories because we do get emotional. Give me that baby, Dorsey. And, but this is not just an emotional issue. This is a human rights issue. And it's an issue that we, as the National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Clubs, specifically TMAC, our Metro Atlanta Club, we are ready to take an opportunity now to take a stand against human trafficking and to make a difference by making sure that you have the education and the information that you need and the support that you need. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for taking the time to care. Woman at the Well Transition Center is located here in Atlanta. You can look us up online, PastorDonnaHubbard.com, or Woman at the Well Transition Center. We have a Facebook page. You can look us up on Instagram. And we will be sending out to all of you who registered and all of you who will put your email into the chat room. We have a list of resources available throughout the Southeast District. In case you see something or you get a victim at your church and you know someone who needs help, you've got a family member who has a teenage runaway, we have a resource guide that we're going to be sending out to everyone. I do hope that you have learned something. Thank you once again for caring and making a difference. God bless you. And I want to turn it over now to our Metro Atlanta First Vice President, Tamika Horton.
And while we're doing that, I want to ask you to go ahead and put in the chat box if you have your visitors and a TMAC sister actually invited you. Let's put in the chat box their name. Let's go ahead and use the chat box as of time, and our wonderful Tamika Horton will now take over.
Hey there, everyone. How do I follow that, Bishop Donna? And thank you so much, Bishop Donna and Dr. Stephanie, for chairing and co-chairing this program. They have done an amazing job, even without me at times, obviously. This week I had to go back to work after 2 years. I had a baby during that time, and he was not feeling that at all. So I am just so grateful that Bishop Donna, Dr. Stephanie, and their committee were able to bring such a dynamic program together. I know our time is ending, so I won't be long. I do want to just acknowledge and thank you and thank our committee members, Vivian and Katrina, my lovely TMAC sisters, for working with Bishop Donna and Dr. Stephanie on this program. The four of you ladies rock. I'm appreciative. And thank you to our speakers, Catherine and Dorsey. Obviously, thank you, Madam President, for all of your support, and Madam Governor, and all of our Southeast District sisters, and just team, NA and BPW sisters around the world that have joined us today. Special thanks to Nikki Baker also for your technical support. And so, yeah, I'm so grateful for everyone who's here and who is able to contribute to today's program. The questions have been phenomenal. And if you would like to see more of our work with the Metro Atlanta Club or hear more about the work of our partner organization, Women at the Well Transition Center, or just any other programs, please ask the person who invited you today or continue to check your emails for the email blasts that come out about our various programs throughout the year. We have multiple programs, sometimes 2 in 1 month. So just look forward to communication from us about that. So I thank you all so much for all of your hard work. And I thank all of the attendees today. We had over 65, 69 people on the call today. And so I'm just really grateful for everyone coming together for this very, very, very important cause. I learned so much. So thank you so much. I'm going to hand it over to Club Sister Gwendolyn Landrum, who's going to represent the membership committee. She's going to give a few words about membership, and then we'll hear final remarks from our president.
Thank you for that. Tamika has done a wonderful job as Second Vice President of Programs, just giving you a broad overview of who we are. So I'm not going to take very much time, but I just wanted to say thank you so very, very much to our guests that have joined us today. Thank you for Club Sisters all across the country that have invited the guests to know the types of programs that we as a club. You've heard our name a number of times, TMAC. We are the Metro Atlanta Club of the National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Association. Headquartered in Washington, D.C., the organization has been around since 1935, started by 7 Black professional and business women for the purpose of bringing quality programs such as this today. Our program focus is LETS, leadership, entrepreneurship, technology, and service, of which this program is one of our many service projects and special projects that we are focusing on a national level. So again, Dr. Stephanie has asked you to share your email so that we can keep you on our list for future programs that are coming. We invite you to membership in TMAC or membership in any of the clubs that you have been invited by. So please reach out to the person that invited you to get more information about membership when the membership period opens, and how you can become a part of the high quality programs that we're bringing to you, and the ability for you to share your talents with us. We are a group of business and professional women that are committed to helping women and young children in our communities. So we invite you to come join us. Thank you so very much for this high quality program. Outstanding job, committee.
Thank you, Gwen, and to the entire committee. Before I close with remarks, because I will tell you, God works in every way to anoint you to understand the importance of what you're getting ready to undertake. This morning, my husband actually told me, I want you to listen to something inspirational. And it was the song Still Standing by the Grace of God. And I want to say to all of you, all your past journeys that have allowed you to experience what you've experienced, and to share that journey, and to still stand, and to still rise, and advocate for women and children and boys and men that are vulnerable. I want to thank you. So, and to our speakers, oh my goodness, Catherine, Dorsey, Pastor Donna, you made this program so worthwhile being in attendance on a Saturday morning. Thank you. And I know there's a lot of information, ladies, that you received. We will put information on the resources on our website so that you know that you can go and have a resource guide on this particular program. Thank you for fighting. Thank you for caring. Thanking you for being an advocate to continue to ensure that we make a difference in the lives of these vulnerable people and that we eradicate human trafficking. Madam Governor, if you would please take community, will you unmute our governor? I'm sure she would have some words that she'd like to say. Madam Governor.
Oh, thank you so much. I don't know what to say except what a powerful presentation, how blessed we are to have sisters in the sisterhood who are able to share information and help us to continue to grow within our organization. I want to thank you all again for such a wonderful presentation, for bringing it home for us. I know that I'm a retired educator, and I know that I felt some of the feelings that you shared with us today as children came to me for help and for guidance. And it brought it all back. It made it all fresh for me today to hear it from you, such brave, such insightful women who have touched us today, and will be so that we will be able to go forward and point out some of the things, and maybe even just recognize some of the things that you shared with us. I want to thank you again, President, Pastor Hubbard, and Dr. Merrick, for such a gracious invitation. And I would not have been anywhere else except with TMAC today. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. And as we end this program, one action we have, see and say. If you see something, say something. And with that, I'm going to turn this back over to our chair, Pastor Donna Hubbard. And again, thank you. Thank you to our co-chair, Dr. Stephanie Merrick, and to Katrina Taylor and to Vivian Robinson, who worked so hard on this program. Thank you. And to our first Vice President, Tamika Hornsby. I could see Hornsby. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President, Madam Governor, Madam President Janice Andrews, and Madam Governor Barbara Johnson. Thank you all so much for your support and for your encouragement to bring this topic that is difficult to the forefront. Thank you to our first Vice President, Tamika, and to our second Vice President, Dr. Stephanie, for all of your assistance and guidance in making this happen. Vivian and Katrina, you made the difference in me being able to move forward all the time. But most of all, I want to thank our guests that came on today and participated. Nikki Baker, I cannot thank you enough for stepping up. She's also my sorority sister, Alpha Alpha Psi. And I just thank God for the opportunity to bring this forward. When Dorsey, Catherine, and I are together and we do presentations together, it is always a mountain moving presentation, because we are moving mountains out of people's lives that they don't want to talk about. These are secrets that have stayed in families for so long and we didn't talk about them. And I learned that anything that everybody's doing and nobody's talking about is considered acceptable behavior, but it's not acceptable anymore to sell another human being. It's not acceptable to exploit another human being, and we will not tolerate it any longer. And so I just want to thank you and ask that you will take a moment to breathe when you get off of here and really think about what you learned that you didn't know before, and more importantly, what you're going to do different from now, what you're going to do differently. There are organizations within your own community that you can participate in, volunteer with, but it can be something as simple as educators, those of you who see children in school who disappear at lunchtime, who come back with bruises or look like they're on drugs. Ask the hard questions, look beyond the superficial and ask what's going on in their lives. Maybe nobody is asking. We have to ask. And so I thank you all again for coming today and supporting us. And I want to thank Catherine and Dorsey. They know how much I love them. And I said I wasn't going to get emotional, but thank you all for listening. We had more than 60 people on here and everyone stayed till the end of the presentation. So we're thankful. Have a wonderful day. You have the information on the Metro Atlanta Club. We have your emails. Look for the resource guide to come to you. God bless you all. Make a difference today. God bless you. Thank you.
Good evening. Have a nice Saturday.
Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great job, ladies. Yes.
Hallelujah. Thank you. And
Yes.
I'm so grateful for my committee and for your guidance, Madam President, Tamika, for your help. Nikki, I don't even know what to say. There's not enough
I know,
words.
Nikki, we
But
appreciate you so much.
Dr. Stephanie, you were, you know, that guiding light that hit me in the back of the head every day. Like, did you do this? Did you do that? Did you? But every now and then we need a knock to get us, you know, on track. So thank you all. Thanks for everything, y'all. I really do appreciate it.